Oh, there you are. Where have you been hiding? I feel like you don't trust me. I don't, because you always leave me as soon as you have the chance. Oh, please. It's you who has no loyalty. One cappuccino and I'm gone. I hate to admit it, but I think he has a point. There's a lot more to money than you may think. In The Psychology of Money, which is this great book I recently read, Morgan Housel writes that the key to getting better at money is understanding our behavior. Reading it was like wiping foggy glasses clean. All of a sudden, everything about money became sharp and clear. So here are 15 lessons I learned from The Psychology of Money. People like your Lambo, not you. Take a look at this Lambo or this Porsche. Are you thinking about who owns it? Or is all you can think about, I wish that was mine. How cool would I look driving that? But here's the thing, if you were driving it, everyone who saw you would feel the same way. They don't care about you, they care about the car. So spending money on luxury items to get attention or admiration is really a bad investment because no one is as impressed by your fancy things as you are. You earn people's goodwill through your actions and integrity. Humility, kindness, and empathy will earn you more respect than horsepower ever will. Use money to gain freedom. Although money doesn't solve all problems, it does solve money problems. So to a certain degree, more money does mean more happiness. But the end goal of money isn't to buy things. The greatest value that money provides is options and the ability to control your time. That's real freedom. In The Psychology of Money, Morgan Housel writes, the highest form of wealth is the ability to wake up every morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. This lesson really resonated with me. For as long as I can remember, I've wanted to be free. To have enough FU money in the bank that I no longer have to work for a shitty boss or with toxic colleagues or need permission to visit a doctor or take a weekday off. Having money gives you the freedom of choice to pursue a different career, to travel, or to take care of a loved one. Freedom is the biggest ROI money can offer, and to me it's more valuable than any luxury good. Know when you have enough. One day, authors Kurt Vonnegut and Joseph Heller were at a party given by a billionaire. And Vonnegut asked Heller, how does it make you feel to know that our host made more money yesterday than your novel did in its entire history? And to be clear, that novel is Catch-22. It's considered to be one of the most significant novels of the 20th century, and it sold millions of copies. And then Heller replied, well, I have something that our host doesn't, the knowledge that I have enough. And that got me thinking, how much do I need to feel content? What does it even mean to have enough? In Lost and Found, Janine Roth writes, enough cannot be in something we can touch or buy or have, like money or a thin body or boots. Enough isn't an amount, it's a relationship to what you already have. I really like that. Enough is not a number, it's a relationship to what you have. Studies have also shown that happiness does increase if you make more money, but only to a certain point. I mean, money does solve money problems, so if you can't afford rent and you're basically homeless, obviously if you make more money, that's going to increase your happiness now, because now you have a roof over your head. But beyond having a basic needs met and then some more, happiness doesn't really increase if you start making more money beyond that point. Knowing when you have enough helps preserve your financial security. There's no reason to risk what you have and need for what you don't have and don't really need. Just think of it like this. Enough is realizing that an insatiable appetite can ruin you. Just look at the downfall of Bernie Madoff. Less ego, more wealth. On the podcast Money for Couples, Ramit Sethi regularly interviews guests who have a joint income of hundreds of thousands of dollars per year, yet somehow they're still living paycheck to paycheck. That just baffles me. Often it's because they've fallen in the trap of lifestyle inflation. As their income increases, they overspend on wants, not needs. A house that's bigger than they need, multiple cars, constant takeout. That puts them in a constant state of anxiety. Always just one unexpected expense away from financial disaster. Morgan Housel writes that the hardest financial skill is getting the goalpost to stop moving. Saving money is the gap between your income and your ego. One of the most powerful ways to increase your savings isn't by earning more, it's by increasing your humility. You build wealth by holding back on what you could buy today in order to have more money and more options in the future. If you can practice delayed gratification, you don't need a huge salary in order to start building wealth. Past a certain level of income, what you truly need is just what sits below your ego. If you'd like more tips on this, I write a newsletter about how to live with less and bring more calm into your life. If that sounds interesting, there's a sign-up link in the description below. Time is the most powerful force in investing. Housel writes that the most important book about investing should be called Shut Up and Wait. Take Warren Buffett, one of the richest men alive. I don't know what you were doing when you were 10 years old. When I was 10, I was playing football with my friends outside. Not Warren Buffett though. He started investing at the age of 10. And when he was 30, he had made his first $1 million. But when Housel wrote his book in 2020, Warren Buffett's net worth was $84.5 billion. And according to Forbes magazine, his estimated net worth was even higher in 2024, a staggering $133 billion. Warren Buffett's skill is investing. I think we can all agree on that. But his secret is time. That's the power of compounding. Wealth is what you don't see. Someone who just spent a week at the Four Seasons in Bora Bora may be wealthy, but it's also possible that they spend their entire life savings on it, or that they bought it on credit. All you really know is that they have $70,000 less than before that trip. That's right, I looked it up. That's how much a 2-bedroom deluxe beachfront villa cost for a week. That's crazy. The only way to be wealthy and stay wealthy is to not spend the money you have. Being rich is about current income, but wealth is hidden. If rich is loud, wealth whispers. It's income not spent, an emergency fund, and an investment portfolio. Wealth is money or financial assets that haven't been converted yet into the things that you see. It's the accumulation of your monthly leftovers after you spend what you make. You don't need a reason to save. Imagine how hard it would be to learn how to write if you couldn't read the books of great authors like Stephen King, Jane Austen, and E.L. James. Okay, maybe not E.L. James, but definitely the other two. Wealth works the same way. Wealth is something you don't see, so it can be hard to imitate wealthy people and learn from their habits. But what you can do is save, and you don't need a specific reason to save. Just like you don't need a specific reason to subscribe to this YouTube channel. So go ahead, it's fun and it's free. But jokes aside, saving money is more within your control than you might think. Most people save for a specific event, a wedding, a vacation, a down payment on their house, a truck. But you can also save just because. Saving is a hedge against life's inevitable ability to surprise you in the worst possible way at the worst possible moment. Speaking of which, plan for the plan to go not according to plan. A blackjack card counter knows they're playing a game of odds, not certainties. There's never a situation where you can be so sure that you can bet every chip in front of you without risk of losing them. The world just isn't that kind to anyone, at least not consistently. This is just as true outside a casino. You can plan all you want, but life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. That's why you have to leave room for error. Leaving room for error widens the target around what you think will happen, and it will protect you from things you never saw coming. That's also why it's good to save, even if you don't have a specific reason. If you plan for the plan not to go according to plan, you'll be able to weather the storm and come out the other side with your financial security intact. Luck versus hard work. There was a time where I'd fall for those articles about the morning routines of successful people. Hey, I've got the same 24 hours in a day as Richard Branson and Tim Cook, and look at what they accomplished. Let's try their morning routine. But following someone else's morning routine doesn't make you rich. That's just bullshit. Morgan Housel writes about Bill Gates' incredible good fortune. When he was 13, he went to Lakeside High School, which in 1968 was one of the only high schools in the world that had a computer. Sure, Bill Gates is smart, he worked very hard, and he had a vision for computers that very few people had at the time. But he also had a 1 in a million head start by attending Lakeside High School, a school where he was able to play with a computer every single day. Even Gates himself said, if there had been no Lakeside, there would have been no Microsoft. So Morgan Housel argues that you should be careful who you look up to and admire. If you want to learn financial lessons, it's better to focus less on specific individuals and more on finding broad patterns. Nobody is crazy. You probably know someone, or maybe you've seen someone online who spent a fortune on something that is just mind-blowing to you. You can't understand that people spend money on that. People do crazy stuff with their money, but no one is crazy. And we do crazy things with our money because we're all relatively new to the game. Money has been around for thousands of years, but modern-day investment advice is practically an infant. Just think of dogs. They were domesticated over 10,000 years ago, but they still retain some behaviors from their wild ancestors, wolves, like howling. What looks crazy to you may make perfect sense to me, but neither of us is crazy. Morgan Housel quotes a study from 2 economists who concluded that how much risk people are willing to take with their money depends on their personal experiences, where and when they were born, and what money lessons they learned during their life. Your personal experiences with money may make up 0.000000001% of what happened in the world, but it may make up 80% of how you think the world works. So even though your financial decision may seem irrational to me, it may make perfect sense to you. For example, when you were born can have a huge impact on how you perceive risk. Someone who lived through the 2008 financial crisis might be much more conservative with their money than someone who lived through the 1990s when the stock market was booming. It reminds me of this quote by Charles Adams. Normal is an illusion. What is normal for the spider is chaos for the fly. What gets you wealthy doesn't keep you wealthy. Getting money requires taking risks, being optimistic, and putting yourself out there. But once you have some money, keeping it requires the opposite of taking risks. What you need then is humility, frugality, and the fear that what you made can be taken away from you just as fast. And you also have to accept that it wasn't all skill that got you that money. At least part of what got you to where you are now was luck. So just because you were successful in the past doesn't guarantee financial success in the future if you keep taking the same risks. In fact, you could lose it all. There are 2 reasons why you need to have a survival mentality when it comes to your money. The first one is that once you have money, few gains are so great that they are worth wiping yourself out over. And the second one is compound interest. Just look at how Warren Buffett's wealth exploded over time. Let's say you were able to save $100,000 and invest it in the S&P 500. With average returns of 10%, that will be worth $672,000 in 20 years. But if you're young enough that you can wait 10 more years, it will be worth $1.7 million. And if you can wait 40 years, it will be worth $4.5 million. All without adding a single penny to the original sum. That's why it's key that you don't lose that original $100,000 by taking unnecessary risks. To invest, you need to pay a price. Investing is worth it because the reward is that your wealth grows due to compound interest so you can retire in peace. But that reward isn't free. The price is volatility, uncertainty, fear, doubt, and regret. It hurts. In order to have your money make more money, you need to invest it. But there's no 100% guarantee that it will. That's why those finance ads always say past performance is no guarantee of future results. I mean, there practically is a guarantee if you invest your money long enough, but it's not a straight line. To some, that feels like a fine, like they're doing something wrong. But it's a fee, not a fine. Just think of getting a new car. You could buy a new one, you could buy a second-hand car, or you could steal one. But most people know to avoid stealing a car and instead pay the price. And it's the same with investing. The trick is convincing yourself that, like buying a ticket for Disneyland, it's an admission fee worth paying. You don't need to be right all the time, just right enough. You can be wrong half of the time and still make a fortune, because a small minority of things account for the majority of outcomes. Housel calls these tail events. A small number of extraordinary successes drives the majority of results in business and investing. The movie Snow White earned $8 million in its first 6 months. That allowed Walt Disney to pay off debts, pay out retention bonuses to his employees, and buy a new studio. And the Russell 3000 index increased more than 73-fold since 1980. And this is due to 7% of companies performing extremely well, while 40% were effectively failures. And even Charlie Munger said, if you remove just a few of Berkshire's top investments, his long-term track record is pretty average. You don't need to be right all the time, just right enough. In poker, there's this saying that all you need to stand a chance of winning a tournament is a chip and a chair. This comes from Jack Strauss, who won the 1982 World Series of Poker main event after being down to just a single chip earlier on in the tournament. The goal isn't to avoid mistakes, it's to avoid going broke. Because in the long run, a few big wins matter way more than countless small losses. Allow yourself to change. When I was 5 years old, I wanted to be an astronaut and fly spaceships because that looked cool. As I got older, that changed. And then when I turned 18, I had to decide what I was going to study. But what do you know about work at that age? I'd only worked minimum wage jobs. I worked as a paperboy, as a supermarket shelf stacker, and I also worked as a pizza delivery boy for a couple of years. I just knew I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. I picked law school because I could. My grades were good enough, and because they told me it would allow me to keep my options open. I then worked as a corporate lawyer for about 8 years, but I quit because for almost 1.5 years I had really bad headaches. That's 12 years ago, and I haven't worked a day in law since, so I changed again. The fact is that we make decisions and plans, but we don't know what the future holds. A 30-year-old may pay good money to get a tattoo removed that they paid good money for to set when they were a teenager. And a 50-year-old may rush to get a divorce from someone who they couldn't wait to get married when they were 25. And this impacts your finances. In an ideal world, you would follow Warren Buffett's lead and do the same thing for decades on end, letting compounding run wild. But for many of us, life happens and things change, both the world around us and our goals and desires. So rather than a single 80-year and something lifespan, our money perhaps has 4 20-year blocks. When that happens, it's best to accept the sunk costs and accept the reality of change and move on as soon as possible. It's important to sleep at night. When you're sick, you can also have a fever, and that can be a good thing, because just an increase of 1 degree in your body temperature can reduce the replication rate of some viruses by a factor of 200. But most people don't see it that way and want to fight the fever. Why? Because fever hurts, and people don't want to hurt. The same applies when it comes to money. You and I, we aren't robots. We have feelings. We may think we're always rational, and when it comes to our money, tell ourselves that we want the mathematically optimal strategy. But really what most of us want is to not worry and to sleep well at night. So instead of being purely rational, be reasonable. You're not a spreadsheet, you're a person with emotions. And being reasonable is more realistic. It gives you a better chance of sticking with it in the long run, which is what matters most when it comes to managing your money. One thing that helps me sleep better at night is being frugal with my money. I made a separate video about that called Why I'm So Frugal, which you can watch right here. So thanks for watching today's video. I hope you got some value out of it, and I'd love to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.